Hello, you tired little peeps. It's that time once again. So let's snuggle up fast because tonight we're traveling back in time to witness the slow, methodical laying of stones and the quiet artistry involved in building and decorating a private Roman Domus. So if you are new to the channel or returning, liking the video significantly helps. Also, please let me know where you're listening in from and what time it is for you. Now get comfortable and let's begin. The story of a house, specifically a Roman domus, does not begin with the walls or the roof. It does not even begin with the foundation stones that sit heavy in the earth. It begins with the empty space. It begins with the silence of a vacant plot of land nestled within the grid of a growing city. Imagine, if you will, the early morning light of an ancient Italian summer washing over a rectangular patch of dry earth. The sun has just crested the distant hills, casting long, pale shadows across the ground. The city around this plot is just beginning to stir, but here, in this defined space, there is only the potential of what is to come. The plot is situated on a quiet side street, distinct from the noisy thoroughfares where carts clatter and merchants shout. Here, the dust settles softly on the ground. The air smells faintly of wild thyme crushed underfoot and the mineral scent of heated stone. Before a single brick is laid, the land must be understood. It must be measured, respected, and prepared. Into this quiet scene walks a man whose profession is one of precision and patience. He is a surveyor, a menser, or perhaps an architect with a keen eye for geometry. He wears a simple tunic, the fabric undyed wool, referencing the utilitarian nature of his task. He carries with him the tools of his trade, tools that rely on the immutability of gravity and the predictability of light. He sets down a heavy wooden instrument known as the groma. It is a simple device, yet essential. A vertical staff with a horizontal crosspiece at the top, from which plumb lines hang, weighted with small lead bobs. Watch closely as he sets the groma into the earth. The iron tip of the staff bites into the dry soil with a dull crunch. He adjusts it, his movements slow and deliberate. He waits for the plumb lines to stop swinging. He watches the lead weights settle until they are perfectly still, pointing directly to the center of the earth. In this stillness, the first lines of the house are born. He is aligning the future walls with the cardinal directions, or perhaps with the existing grid of the city, the decumanus and the cardo. He squints against the sun, sighting along the strings, ensuring that the angles are true right angles. There is no rush here. If the alignment is off by even a fraction of a finger's width, the entire structure will suffer. So he measures again. He checks the shadows. He breathes in the morning air and waits for absolute perfection. Assistants, moving with equal quietness, drive wooden stakes into the corners of the plot. The sound of the mallet striking wood, thud, 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 is a rhythmic, dull percussion that barely disturbs the morning peace. Between these stakes, they stretch lengths of hemp rope. The rope is rough and fibrous, rubbed with chalk or red ochre. When pulled tight, it snaps against the ground, leaving a faint, straight line in the dust. These lines are the ghosts of the walls. They outline where the heavy masonry will one day stand. They define the perimeter of the domus, separating the private world of the future family from the public world of the street. The ground itself must now be prepared. It is uneven, dotted with tufts of grass and small stones, Before the foundation can be dug, the surface must be leveled. Men with broad hoes and heavy rakes begin the work of clearing. The sound is a continuous, scratching whisper, metal against earth, stone rolling over stone. They move with a hypnotic rhythm. Step, scrape, pull. Step, scrape, pull. The dust rises in small, lazy clouds around their ankles, settling back down as a fine powder. They remove the organic topsoil, the soft earth that would shift and compress under the weight of stone. They are searching for the harder, more resilient subsoil, or ideally, the bedrock itself. As the sun climbs higher, warming the air, the digging of the trenches begins. This is not the frantic digging of soldiers making a camp, but the methodical excavation of builders who know that this structure is meant to last for centuries. The trenches are dug deep, wider than the walls they will support. The earth is piled neatly to the side. The smell of damp, cool soil is released from the ground, contrasting with the dry heat of the surface. Consider the composition of the earth they are moving. It is a mixture of clay and sand, perhaps interspersed with fragments of volcanic tuff, that ubiquitous stone of the Roman landscape. The shovels cut through the layers, revealing the geological history of the place. Darker soil gives way to lighter, denser clay. The rhythm of the work is slow and steady. There is no machinery, only the leverage of the human body and the simple efficiency of the spade. Once the trenches are dug to the satisfaction of the architect, who checks their depth with a marked rod, the process of filling them begins. We are not yet laying the visible bricks. We are creating the stereobates, the unseen footing. Large, rough stones are brought to the site. These are not the polished marble of temples, but heavy, irregular chunks of limestone or basalt. They are rolled into the trenches with low grunts of effort and the grinding sound of rock on rock. They are not thrown in haphazardly. Each stone is placed. It is rotated, tested, and settled until it finds its most stable position. The gaps between these large stones are filled with smaller rubble, fist-sized rocks, broken pottery shards from the city's waste, and gravel. This aggregate is then tamped down. Men with heavy wooden rammers pound the stones, compacting them into a dense, unmoving mass. Thump, thump, thump. The vibration travels through the soles of their sandals. The goal is to remove all pockets of air, to create a base as solid as the mountain itself. Now comes the binder, the Roman builder's greatest ally, mortar, but not just any mortar. In a mixing trough nearby, workers are combining lime, water, and a specific type of volcanic sand known as pozzolana. This sand, dug from the earth around the Bay of Naples or near the city of Rome, possesses magical properties. When mixed with lime and water, it does not merely dry. It chemically reacts. It becomes rock. Even under water, it will harden. Watch the mixing process. The lime is a bright, stark white, slaked and sitting like a thick paste. The pozzolana is a dusty reddish-brown or gray. Water is added from clay jugs, splashing into the trough. The workers use long-handled hose to fold the ingredients together. It is a thick, heavy slurry. The sound is a wet, slapping noise as the hoe cuts through the paste. It requires immense strength to mix properly, to ensure that every grain of sand is coated in lime. The consistency must be perfect, not too runny, not too stiff. It must be like thick porridge. This mortar is then carried in wooden buckets to the trenches. It is poured over the layers of rough stone. It flows into the crevices, seeking out the voids between the rocks, binding them together in an unbreakable grip. As it sets, it begins to warm, a chemical heat generated by the reaction. The foundation is becoming a single, monolithic unit. This is opus cementicium, the precursor to modern concrete, the secret strength of the empire. The foundation rises, layer by layer, until it reaches the level of the ground. It is a slow accumulation of material. There is no rush to build upwards yet. The architect walks along the lines of the filled trenches. He kneels down, running his hand over the rough surface of the setting concrete. He checks the corners again with his square. He looks for any sign of settling or shifting. Everything is solid. Everything is still. The perimeter of the house is now defined not just by string, but by stone. The footprint of the domus is established. We can see where the entrance will be, the narrow throat of the fosses leading in from the street. We can see the large central square of the atrium, the heart of the home. We can trace the outlines of the smaller rooms, the cubicula flanking the atrium. The layout is traditional, conservative, and logical. It follows a pattern used by ancestors, a pattern that dictates the flow of air, light, and people. The day begins to fade. The workers clean their tools, scraping the drying mortar from their hoes and trowels. The water in the mixing trough is clouded with lime. The sun dips low again, casting shadows in the opposite direction. The site returns to silence, but it is a different silence now. It is not the silence of empty potential, but the silence of begun work. The earth has been opened and filled. The heavy roots of the house have been planted. As the cool evening air settles over the city, the drying foundation sits quietly, hardening in the dark. It waits for the dawn, when the first true walls will begin to rise above the surface. The process of curing takes time. It cannot be hurried. The stone must drink the mortar, and the mortar must become stone. In the stillness of the night, the chemistry of construction continues, unseen and unheard, preparing to support the weight of the lives that will one day unfold within these boundaries. The geometry of stone. The dawn brings a pale, gray light to the building site. The air is cool, holding the moisture of the night, and dew clings to the rough surfaces of the wooden stakes that still mark the corners of the plot. The foundations, poured and settled days ago, are now hard and cold to the touch. They form a pale gray ribbon of artificial rock, flush with the earth, tracing the outline of the future home. The waiting is over. The silence of curing is replaced by the soft rhythmic sounds of preparation. Today, the walls begin to rise. The structors, the skilled masons, arrive with the sun. They are men of few words, their hands calloused and stained with the dust of limestone and clay. They do not rush. They move with the economy of motion that comes from years of repetition. They inspect the foundation, sweeping away loose dirt and leaves with stiff brushes made of twigs. The surface must be clean to bond with the new mortar that will soon be laid upon it. Piles of material have been delivered during the previous days. There are stacks of flat, kiln-fired bricks, their color a warm, rusty orange, vibrant against the brown earth. There are heaps of tufa blocks, a volcanic stone native to this land. The tufa is porous, lightweight, and varies in color from yellowish gray to a dull reddish brown. It is the bones of the city, easily quarried, but strong enough to endure. Watch the mason as he picks up his trowel. It is a simple tool, a flat blade of iron with a wooden handle, polished smooth by the grip of his palm. He dips it into a fresh bucket of mortar, that same thick, porridge-like mixture of lime and volcanic sand. He slaps a generous dollop onto the hardened foundation. The sound is wet and heavy. Splat. With a quick, fluid motion of his wrist, he spreads it out, the metal blade rasping against the stone beneath. He creates a bed, a soft, yielding layer ready to receive the first course of the wall. For this domus, we are using a technique that is both strong and beautiful in its geometry. Opus reticulatum. It is a method that relies on thousands of small, identical stones. Pick one up in your mind. It is shaped like a pyramid or a diamond. The base is square and flat. The face that will be seen. The body tapers to a point behind it. It is cut from the soft tufa. The mason takes one of these pyramidal stones. He presses the pointed end into the wet mortar bed, pushing it deep so that only the square, flat face is visible. He takes another. He places it next to the first, but not side by side in a straight line. He rotates it so the squares sit on their points, forming a diamond pattern. Diagonal lines. He places a third, a fourth, a fifth. Press, wiggle, set. Press, wiggle, set. It is a mesmerizing process. The wall does not look like a solid block of stone. It looks like a net, a mesh of diamonds stretched across the surface. This is where the name comes from, reticulatum. Like a net, the mason works along the line, his eyes scanning the diagonal alignment. If a stone is slightly too large, he taps it with the handle of his trowel. Tink, tink, until it settles into perfect alignment with its neighbors. Behind this facing of diamond-shaped stones, the core of the wall is being filled. The wall is not solid etufa. It is a sandwich. The outer faces are the neat reticulatum, but the center is filled with rubble and more of that incredibly strong concrete mortar. As the mason builds the face, assistants pour the filling behind it. The liquid mortar flows around the pointed tails of the tufa stones, gripping them, locking them into the core. The wall becomes a single, fused mass. To ensure stability, the mason introduces layers of brick. Every meter or so of height, the diamond pattern stops. A horizontal course of large, flat bricks is laid. These bricks run through the entire thickness of the wall. They act as leveling layers, binding the inner core and the outer faces together, preventing cracks from spreading. The contrast is visually striking. The gray diagonal texture of the tufa interrupted by the sharp, horizontal red lines of the brick. Gray and red. Diagonal and flat. Rough and smooth. The wall rises slowly. Knee height, waist height. The rooms begin to take shape. No longer just lines in the dust, but physical enclosures. Standing in the center of the atrium, you can now feel the separation from the street. The sounds of the city become slightly muffled, blocked by the growing mass of stone and concrete. The light shifts, shadows forming inside the corners of the rooms. The work is quiet. There is no shouting, only the scrape of trowels, the heavy breathing of the men lifting buckets of mortar, and the occasional sharp crack of a hammer splitting a brick to fit a corner. The dust hangs in the air, catching the shafts of sunlight. It smells of wet chalk and dry earth. As the walls grow taller, reaching chest height, the need for scaffolding arises. Long, straight poles of timber are brought in. They are lashed together with strong hemp ropes, creating a wooden grid around the rising walls. The knots are tied with practiced speed, clove hitches and square lashings, tight and secure. Planks are laid across the horizontal poles to create walkways. The masons climb onto these low platforms. They are now working above the ground, looking down into the rooms they are creating. From here, the layout of the domus is undeniable. Specifically, the fosses, the narrow entryway, is clearly defined. The mason working there takes extra care. He is setting the door frame. Heavy blocks of travertine, a harder, whiter limestone, are used here. These stones must bear the weight of the massive wooden doors that will eventually hang there. He checks the verticality with a plumb line, a lead weight on a string, just like the surveyor used. He holds the string against the stone. The string does not touch the stone, nor does it swing away. It hangs perfectly parallel. The wall is true. In the center of the house, the atrium is open to the sky, but the walls surrounding it are thickening. The masons are leaving spaces, voids in the masonry. These are not mistakes. These are for the beams. The heavy timbers that will support the roof are already being anticipated. The pockets are measured and boxed out with wood, preventing the concrete from filling them. The sun passes its zenith and begins to descend. The shadows stretch long again, but now they are cast by the walls themselves. The diagonal pattern of the reticulatum catches the sidelight, creating a texture of immense depth. Thousands of tiny shadows appear in the joints between the stones. It looks like the scales of a great, resting beast, or the woven texture of a basket turned to stone. The day's work concludes not when the wall is finished, but when a certain height is reached, a height that allows the mortar to set overnight without collapsing under its own weight. The masons smooth the top layer of the fresh wall, leaving it rough enough to grip the next day's addition. They climb down from the wooden scaffolding. The timber creaks softly under their weight. They wash their tools again. The water in the buckets turns a milky gray. The site is left in a state of suspended animation. The walls stand around 5 feet high now. They are raw, industrial, and unpolished. They are not yet plastered or painted. They show the honest, structural truth of the building. The red bricks, the gray tufa diamonds, the white mortar joints. Tonight, the walls will cool. The chemical reaction in the core will continue, generating a faint warmth that might attract a stray cat to curl up against the base of the masonry. The domus is no longer an idea. It is a presence. It casts a shadow. It occupies space. It has begun to displace the air, and as the stars come out over the Roman sky, the geometric net of the walls stands silent, a testament to order and patience, waiting for the hands of the builders to return and lift it higher toward the roof. The weight of timber. The walls have risen. They now stand tall, eclipsing the view of the street, enclosing the space in a box of stone and brick. But a house is not a home until it offers shelter from the sky. The open air above the atrium and the rooms is about to be conquered. The time has come for the carpenters, the fabbri tignari, to take the stage. The smell of the site changes today. The mineral dust of stone and lime recedes, replaced by the rich, resinous scent of freshly cut timber. Massive beams of fir and oak lie stacked in the street outside, too long to be stored within the cramped construction site. They are rough-hewn, the bark stripped away by the adze, leaving faceted, rhythmic marks along their length. These are not delicate pieces of furniture wood. These are the muscles of the roof. Watch the slow, coordinated effort of moving these giants. There is no crane here, only a simple lifting device known as a polyspaston. It is a tall A-frame of heavy timber staked into the ground within the atrium. From its apex hangs a block and tackle, a system of pulleys threaded with thick ropes. The first beam to be lifted is the main girder for the atrium. This style of domus will have a Tuscan atrium, meaning the roof will slope inward from four sides, unsupported by columns, relying entirely on the strength of the timber to span the empty space. This requires enormous beams. Ropes are slung around the massive oak log. The knot is checked, a timber hitch that grips tighter the harder you pull. Men man the capstan, a vertical winch at the base of the crane. They push against the horizontal bars, walking in a slow, endless circle. Creak, groan, snap. The rope tightens. The wood of the crane complains under the load. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the great beam leaves the ground. It sways gently as it rises, guided by men holding tag lines to keep it from smashing into the newly finished walls. It rises past the height of a man, past the top of the doorways, until it hovers above the wall line. The architect signals. The walking stops. The beam hangs suspended against the bright blue sky, a dark, heavy line intersecting the sun. Now the delicate work of placement begins. The beam must be lowered into the sockets, the pockets left in the masonry by the stone masons. Men are waiting on the scaffolding, perched high on the walls. They guide the ends of the beam with their hands, shouting quiet, sharp instructions to the winch operators below. Lower, slowly, hold. With a final settling thud, the timber comes to rest in its stone cradle. Dust puffs out from the socket. It fits. The weight of the roof is now transferred to the walls. The process repeats. Another beam, and another. A grid of heavy timber begins to crosshatch the sky above the rooms. Once the main structural beams are in place, the secondary framing begins. Smaller rafters are laid perpendicular to the main beams. They are notched to fit securely, locking together like the fingers of two hands clasped tight. The carpenters move along these beams with the easy grace of cats, unbothered by the drop below. They carry hammers and long iron nails. The sound of hammering fills the air. It is a brighter, sharper sound than the dull thud of stonework. Bang, bang, bang. The rhythm echoes off the hard surfaces of the walls. They are building the skeleton of the roof. They create the slope, the pitch that will shed the rain. In the center of the atrium, they frame the compluvium. This is the rectangular opening in the roof that will remain unsealed. It is the eye of the house, allowing sunlight to flood the interior and rainwater to fall through. The carpenters frame this opening with precision, ensuring the edges are perfectly square. Below it, on the floor of the atrium, the masons have already begun to dig the shallow pool, the impluvium, which will catch that water. The relationship between the hole in the roof and the hole in the floor must be exact. With the skeleton complete, the skin is applied. Wide, flat planks of wood are nailed across the rafters. This is the sheathing. The blue sky is gradually blotted out, strip by wooden strip. The interior of the house grows darker, cooler. Shadows deepen. The harsh glare of the sun is replaced by a soft, diffused gloom. The house is beginning to feel enclosed. It is capturing a volume of air, separating it from the world outside. Now, the roof tiles. Tegule and imbrex. These are the terracotta scales that will waterproof the home. They are heavy, fired clay, the color of dried blood or autumn leaves. The tegulae are large, flat rectangles with raised edges, flanged on the sides. The embraces are curved, like half-pipes. Laborers carry these tiles up ladders on their shoulders, hods stacked high. It is back-breaking work. They pass them to the tilers on the roof. The tiling begins at the eaves, the lowest point, and works upward. First, a row of flat tegulae is laid side by side. Their raised edges touch. Then, a curved imbrex is placed over the seam where the two flat tiles meet. It caps the joint, preventing water from getting in. This pattern creates the classic Roman roof profile, a series of flat channels separated by rounded ridges. Clink, clatter, scrape. The sound of fired clay moving against fired clay. The tiles are not nailed down. They are held in place by their own weight and the friction of the overlap. The roof becomes a heavy, interlocking shield. The tilers work their way up the slope, row by row. They reach the compluvium, the central opening. Here, they install special decorative terracotta plaques along the edge, perhaps depicting the face of a lion or a gorgon, designed to ward off evil and channel the water into clean drips. As the last tiles are placed near the peak, the sun begins to set. The roof is complete. From the street, the house now looks like a fortress. The red tiles glow in the evening light. Inside, the darkness is profound. The only light comes from the compluvium, a rectangular shaft of twilight falling into the center of the dusty, unfinished atrium. The air inside is still. It no longer moves with the wind. It smells of raw wood, pine resin, and the cooling clay of the tiles. The house has a lid. It is sealed against the rain, against the sun, against the prying eyes of the city. The heavy timber, cut from the forests of the Apennines, now rests silently above, a dark, protective forest canopy transplanted indoors. The structure is built. Now the refinement must begin. The rough stone and raw wood must be hidden, softened, and decorated. But for tonight, the house stands dry and dark, a hollow shell waiting for its skin. The skin of marble dust. The roof is on. The heavy timber lid has sealed the house, trapping the shadows inside. Step into the atrium now, and the feeling is entirely different. It is no longer an open construction site exposed to the wind and the gaze of the neighbors. It is a cave. The air is still and cool, smelling faintly of damp earth and pine resin. The light falls in a sharp, rectangular shaft from the compluvium above, illuminating the rough, uneven texture of the stone and brick walls. They are strong, yes, but they are ugly. They are skeletal. It is time to give the house its skin. Enter the tectors, the plasterers. These are artisans of a different caliber. While the masons dealt with weight and gravity, the plasterers deal with surface and light. They bring with them not heavy stones, but fine powders and sifted sands. Their workspace is the vertical plane. The process of rendering a Roman wall is not a simple matter of covering it up. It is a ritual of layering. It requires patience, for each coat must be applied, allowed to rest, and prepared to receive the next. It is a slow accumulation of thickness, a transformation of the rough into the smooth. First, the walls must be wetted. Assistants splash water onto the thirsty bricks and tufa blocks. The stone darkens as it drinks the moisture. This is crucial. If the wall is too dry, it will suck the water out of the plaster too quickly, causing it to crack and fall. The wall must be damp, ready to bond. The first coat is applied. It is called the trullisadio, or the scratch coat. The mortar here is coarse, mixed with rough sand and sometimes crushed pottery shards. The plasterer takes a trowel full of the thick gray mud and throws it against the wall with a sharp flick of the wrist. Thwack, thwack, thwack. It is a satisfying wet sound. He does not smooth it out perfectly. He spreads it roughly, covering the bricks, filling the deep recesses of the mortar joints. Before this layer dries, he takes a tool with teeth, like a comb, and drags it across the wet surface. He scars the plaster. He creates deep, parallel grooves. Scratch, scratch, scratch. To the untrained eye, it looks like he is ruining his work, but he is creating a key. These grooves will give the next layer something to grip onto. The wall is left to dry, but not fully. It must remain green, slightly soft, curing slowly in the dim light of the atrium. Days pass. The scratch coat hardens into a rough gray crust. Now comes the leveling. The next layers, there may be 2 or even 3, are known as the arenatum. The sand used here is finer, carefully sifted to remove any large pebbles. The lime is purer, whiter. The plasterers work with long wooden floats. They spread the mixture over the scratch coat. The sound changes. It is no longer a wet slap, but a dry, rhythmic swish-swish. They work in broad arcs, moving their arms from the shoulder. They are erasing the wall. The texture of the brick is gone. The undulations of the stone are buried. They check the surface with straight edges, ensuring that the wall is perfectly flat, perfectly plumb. If there is a hollow, they fill it. If there is a bump, they shave it down. The room is becoming a geometric abstraction, a box of flat gray planes, but the true magic of the Roman interior lies in the final coat. This is the marmoratum. For this layer, sand is abandoned. Instead, they use marble dust, white marble, crushed and ground into a fine, flour-like powder. When mixed with the lime, it creates a plaster that is brilliant white, dense, and hard. Watch the master plasterer now. He applies this final coat thin, perhaps only a few millimeters thick. The paste is creamy, almost like soft cheese. He spreads it with a metal trowel, not wood. The metal sings against the fine grit of the marble dust. Shh, ring, shh, ring. He works the surface obsessively. He compresses the plaster, forcing the particles of marble together. As he presses, the lime water rises to the surface, creating a sheen. He does not stop when it is flat. He continues to burnish it. He rubs the wall with a smooth stone or a piece of polished marble. Back and forth, up and down. The friction generates heat. The plaster begins to change. It ceases to look like a coating and begins to look like solid stone. It starts to reflect the light. The shaft of sunlight falling from the roof opening hits the wall and bounces, diffusing a soft, milky glow throughout the entire room. The gray gloom is banished. The room feels expansive, clean, and impossibly smooth. Run your hand over the finished wall in your mind. It is cool to the touch, colder than the air. It feels like polished eggshell. There is no grain, no roughness. It is a seamless white mirror. This process is repeated in every room. The cubicula, the small bedrooms, become intimate white boxes. The tablinum, the office of the master, becomes a grand hall of polished surfaces. The house smells purely of wet lime now, a clean, alkaline scent that scours the nose. The humidity in the house is high. The walls are sweating as they cure. This white canvas is beautiful in its own right. It represents hygiene, order, and the mastery of nature. But to the Roman eye, white is merely a beginning. It is the preparation for color. But for now, we must let the marmoratum cure. We must let the chemical bonds lock the marble dust into a stone-hard veneer. The workmen pack up their trowels and floats. They leave the house in silence. The dust motes dance in the light beams. The house is waiting. It is a blank page, pristine and perfect, ready for the artists who will bring the stories, the gods, and the gardens onto these walls. The skin is complete. The tattoo comes next. The pigment and the damp wall. The house stands in a suspended state of whiteness. The marble dust plaster, applied with such rigorous pressure in the previous days, is still holding its moisture. It is cool, damp, and chemically active. It is a giant, blank canvas waiting for the final transformation. Now, before the walls can fully dry and lock their surface forever, the pictores, the painters, must intervene. They arrive early, bringing with them a different set of tools. No heavy hods or trowels today. Instead, they carry wooden boxes filled with small clay pots, leather pouches, and bundles of brushes. They set up their station in the center of the atrium, where the light is best. Listen to the sound of preparation. It is the rhythmic grinding of stone against stone. The pigments, derived from the earth and the sea, must be pulverized into the finest powder. There is ochre, a soft mustard yellow dug from the clay hills. There is rubrica, a deep, earthy red. There is caroleum, the Egyptian blue, a synthetic miracle of copper and sand glowing like the summer sky. And there is atramentum, the deepest black made from the soot of burned resin or the charred bones of ivory. The apprentice works the pestle and the mortar. Grind, grind, grind. The powder becomes finer with every rotation, a colored dust that stains the air and the hands. This dust is then mixed with water, pure, clean water. There is no oil here, no egg yolk binding the paint. The binder is the wall itself. This is the magic of buon fresco, true fresco. The master painter walks to the wall. He touches it with the back of his hand. It is clammy. It is perfect. The lime in the plaster is migrating to the surface, creating a microscopic crust of calcium carbonate. If he applies the water-based pigment now, it will be sucked deep into the pores of the plaster. As the wall dries, the lime will crystallize over the pigment, locking the color inside the stone. The painting will not be on the wall. It will be part of the wall. But one cannot simply start painting. Order must be established. The vast white expanse must be divided. The painter takes a long string dusted with red ochre powder. He asks an assistant to hold one end at the top corner of the wall. He holds the other end near the floor. He pulls it tight, like a bowstring. He pulls it away from the wall and lets it snap back. Thwack! A perfect, faint red line appears vertically on the white plaster. He repeats this horizontally. Thwack! He is creating a grid. He is measuring out the dado, the bottom section, the central panel, where the main action will take place, and the upper frieze. The room is being compartmentalized into logical geometric spaces. Now, the background colors are applied. The brushes used are large, made of hog bristle, stiff enough to move the liquid, but soft enough not to disturb the delicate plaster. The painter dips the brush into a pot of cinnabar, the most expensive, vibrant red, the color of power and wealth. Watch the brush touch the wall. The plaster drinks the liquid greedily. The stroke is not a surface smear. It is an infusion. The white disappears, replaced instantly by a deep, saturated crimson. Swish, swish, lift. The motion is repetitive and soothing. The painter works quickly, for he is racing against the drying air. He must cover the entire designated panel while the plaster is still receptive. He paints large rectangular fields of this red. In the next room, perhaps he uses the black atramentum to create a sleek, night-like dado. The walls are no longer white ghosts. They are becoming heavy with color. The smell of the room changes. The sharp alkaline scent of lime is now mixed with the metallic tang of the mineral pigments. Once the large blocks of color are laid in, the detail work begins. The master changes his brush. He picks up a finer tool, perhaps made of squirrel hair or badger fur, tapered to a fine point. He is painting the architectural illusions. The Roman style demands that the wall does not look flat. It must look like a window into another world, or like a structure made of precious materials. He paints columns that do not exist. With a steady hand, he draws the vertical lines of a fluted column in pale yellow against the red background. He adds shadows, a darker mix of ochre on one side, a highlight of pure white on the other. Suddenly, the flat wall seems to have depth. The painted column appears to stand out, casting a painted shadow on the painted wall. He paints garlands of ivy and laurel, draped between these imaginary columns. Dot, dot, swish. Green leaves appear, small red berries. He paints a faux marble texture on the lower panels, swirling purple and gray together to mimic the expensive stone imported from Egypt or Greece. He is faking luxury with nothing but colored dirt and water. The room is silent, except for the soft breathing of the artist and the gentle friction of the brush. The light in the atrium shifts as the clouds pass overhead, changing the intensity of the colors on the wet wall. The red looks darker in the shadow, brighter in the sun. This process continues for hours. The painter does not stop to eat. He cannot. If the plaster dries, the golden hour is lost. If he must stop, he has to cut away the unpainted plaster and lay a fresh patch the next day. So he works in a trance state, moving from the top of the wall down to the floor. As evening approaches, the major zones of the room are filled. The room is now a vibrant box of red, black, and yellow. The colors are wet and glossy. Over the next few days, as the wall dries, they will become matte. They will lighten slightly, settling into their permanent hue. The painter steps back. He wipes his hands on a rag. His tunic is speckled with red and yellow dots. The wall is still breathing, still curing. The pigments are slowly becoming stone. The house is no longer just a shelter. It is becoming a work of art. The stark geometry of the construction phase is being softened by the illusion of the brush. But the center of the panels remains empty. The frames are painted. The background is set. But the stories, the mythological scenes, the landscapes, the gods, are yet to come. They wait for the wall to be ready for the finest detail. For now, we leave the walls to drink their color in the quiet dark of the coming night. The mosaic beneath the feet, while the walls cure, locking the vibrant reds and yellows into their stony embrace. The attention of the builders shifts downward. The floor, in a Roman Domus. The floor is not merely a surface to walk upon. It is a statement of permanence. It is the cool, solid anchor of the house. Rugs rot, wood splinters, but a mosaic. A mosaic lasts forever. The preparation begins with the earth itself. The ground inside the rooms has been leveled long ago, but it is not yet ready for the delicate art of the musivarius, the mosaicist. A floor that shifts or cracks is a failure. So, the layering process begins again, mirroring the meticulous preparation of the walls, but with heavier, coarser materials. First comes the statumen. Large fist-sized stones are rammed into the earth. Thump, thump, thump. The heavy wooden beetles pound the ground until the soil and stone are indistinguishable, a hard, compacted crust. Then, the rudas. A mixture of broken brick, gravel, and lime is poured over the stones. It is spread thick, 3 fingers deep. Men with heavy iron rollers push back and forth, compressing this layer until it is dense and unyielding. Finally, the nucleus. This is the bedding layer. It is a finer mortar, mixed with crushed pottery and lime, spread thin and smooth. It is the canvas for the stones. It is kept damp, waiting for the artist's hand. The Musavarius enters. He is a man of infinite patience. He brings with him sacks of tesserae. These are the pixels of the ancient world, tiny cubes of stone cut by hand with a hammer and a hardie, a chisel set into a block of wood. Tink, tink, tink. The sound of cutting tesserae is high-pitched and constant, like a bird chirping. He has cubes of white limestone, cubes of black basalt, cubes of gray marble, perhaps a small bag of precious green glass or red jasper for special details. He does not pour them out randomly. He kneels on the damp nucleus, a wooden board under his knees to spread his weight. He starts with the border, a simple geometric pattern to frame the room, a black line, 2 stones wide. He picks up a black cube, dips it into a pot of lime paste, and presses it into the bedding. Press. He picks up another. Press. He places them side by side, leaving a tiny gap for the grout. He works in lines. A meander pattern, the Greek key, begins to take shape. Black lines turning at right angles against a field of white. Up, right, down, right, up. It is a labyrinth of stone. The rhythm is hypnotic. Pick, dip, press. Pick, dip, press. His hand moves with mechanical precision, but his eye is constantly judging the spacing. If a stone is too big, he nips a corner off with a pair of pincers. Snip. In the center of the room, he creates the emblema. This is the centerpiece, the jewel of the floor. It might be a geometric rosette, a scene of fish, or a simple, elegant pattern of intersecting circles. For the atrium, a large, sweeping pattern of black scales on a white background is chosen. It mimics the movement of water, rippling out from the impluvium in the center. The sound of the work is a quiet, scratching friction. Stone rubbing against mortar, the breathing of the artist, the occasional soft curse when a stone slips. He works row by row, the pattern growing outward like a slow fungus. Imagine the tactile sensation. The stones are cold and hard. The mortar is wet and gritty. The dust of the limestone coats the artist's fingers in a fine white powder. His back aches, but he does not stop. The mortar waits for no man. He must finish the section before the nucleus hardens. Hours bleed into days. The floor of the atrium is slowly covered in thousands upon thousands of these tiny cubes. It becomes a vast, pixelated carpet of stone, but it is not yet finished. The surface is rough. The stones are uneven heights. Sharp corners stick up. Now comes the grinding. Laborers arrive with heavy stones attached to long handles. They wet the floor with water and sprinkle it with sand. Then the grinding begins. Scrape, scrape, scrape. They push the heavy stones back and forth over the mosaic. The sound is harsh, a grinding roar that fills the empty house. They are sanding the floor down. They grind until the surface is perfectly flat. The tops of the tesserae are worn down until they are level with each other. The sharp edges disappear. The pattern becomes clearer, sharper. The white stones gleam. The black stones deepen. Then, the polishing. Finer sand is used. Then pumice stone. The sound changes from a roar to a hiss. Hiss, hiss, hiss. They polish until the floor feels like glass under the fingertips. Finally, they rub it with oil and wax. The colors pop. The black becomes jet black. The white becomes a creamy alabaster. Walk across it in your mind. You are barefoot. The floor is cool, almost icy. It is perfectly smooth, but you can feel the faint, microscopic texture of the grout lines between the stones. It feels solid, grounded. It is a floor that will survive fire, flood, and the weight of centuries. In the triclinium, the dining room, they might lay a simpler floor, opus signinum. This is a flooring made of crushed terracotta mixed with lime, creating a waterproof, reddish surface. Into this wet red cement, they randomly press white marble chips. It looks like nougat or a starry night sky turned red. It is polished until the white chips shine like stars against the matte red background. The house now has a bottom. The walls are painted, the roof is sealed, and the floor is a paved masterpiece. The echo in the rooms changes again. It is sharper, bouncing off the hard stone floor and the polished plaster walls. The house is a hard, resonant shell. It is beautiful, but it is cold. It is an empty vessel. It needs warmth. It needs light. It needs the furniture of life. But first, we must attend to the connection between these spaces, the doors, the barriers that will grant privacy and security to the inhabitants of this stone sanctuary. The guardian oak. The house is now a structure of stone, plaster, and mosaic. It is hard, cold, and echoing. It is a fortress of surfaces, but it is not yet private. The wind from the street still wanders down the fosses, swirling dust across the newly polished atrium floor. The gaze of the passer-by can still penetrate the sanctuary. It is time to close the eyes of the house. It is time for the doors. The intestarius, the joiner, takes over from the heavy carpenters who built the roof. His work is finer, closer to the eye. He sets up his bench in the shaded portico of the garden. The air around him becomes perfumed with the scent of cypress and olive wood. Unlike the raw fir of the roof beams, this wood has been seasoned for years. It is dry, dense, and stable. He begins with the aianua, the great front door. This is not a simple barrier. It is the face the house presents to the world. It must be imposing. It must speak of the dignity of the owner. It will be a double door, two massive valves meeting in the center. Watch the joinery. There are no iron nails here to rust and stain the wood. The joiner uses the geometry of the wood itself to bind it together. He marks a board of dark oak. He uses a chisel. Tap, tap, tap. To carve a rectangular hole, the mortise. On the connecting board, he cuts a matching tongue, the tenon. He heats a pot of animal glue over a small charcoal brazier. The smell is pungent, musky. He brushes the hot glue onto the tenon and drives it into the mortise with a wooden mallet. Thwack. The fit is so tight that the excess glue squeezes out like a thin amber bead. He wipes it away with a shaving. The two pieces of wood are now one. He builds the door in panels, a frame of thick stiles and rails holding floating panels of cypress in the center. This allows the wood to breathe, to expand and contract with the seasons without cracking the frame. The surface is planned smooth. Shh, whip, shh, whip. The plane curls up long, thin ribbons of wood that fall to the floor, releasing a fresh burst of cedar-scented aroma. Now, the armor. The door is not left as bare wood. It is studded with bronze. The smith brings a bag of heavy bronze bosses, large decorative nail heads shaped like lion heads or simple, heavy domes. The joiner pre-drills the holes. He hammers the bronze studs into the oak. Clang, thud. The contrast is beautiful. The dark, matte wood against the gleaming, golden-brown metal. The installation of a Roman door is a feat of mechanics. There are no side hinges as we know them. The door does not hang from the frame. It spins. It relies on a pivot system. At the top and bottom of each door leaf, a stout bronze cylinder, the cardo, protrudes. The masons have already prepared the threshold. A threshold of solid travertine stone lies at the entrance. In it, 2 round cups are hollowed out and lined with bronze. These are the sockets. The heavy doors are lifted. It takes 4 men. They grunt with the effort. They tilt the door, guiding the top pivot into a hole in the lintel above. Then, they drop the bottom pivot into the bronze cup in the threshold. Clunk. The door settles. The joiner tests it. He pushes the massive oak slab with one hand. It swings, slowly, heavily, but smoothly. Grrr, squeak. The sound of bronze turning on bronze. It is a sound of weight, of security. When these doors are shut, the noise of the street is cut off instantly. The silence inside the house becomes absolute. Inside the house, for the bedrooms and the dining room, the doors are lighter. They are tall and narrow, perhaps painted in colors to match the frescoes, red or pale blue. Some are bifolding, designed to fold back entirely to open the room to the atrium. And then the lock, the security of the domus. The locksmith installs a complex mechanism on the inside of the front door. It is a box of iron and bronze. The key is not a small jagged thing, but a heavy L-shaped bar with a specific pattern of teeth. When the key is inserted and lifted, it pushes a series of tumblers, pins that fall into holes in the bolt. It is the ancestor of every modern lock. The sound of the key turning is a mechanical symphony. Click, clack, slide. The heavy bolt shoots into the stone door frame. The house is locked. The joiner moves through the house, checking every shutter. The windows, few and high to discourage thieves, are fitted with internal wooden shutters. There is no glass in most windows, only open spaces. When the shutters are closed, the room becomes pitch black. A simple wooden bar drops across them to hold them tight against the wind. The house is now a sealed vessel. The smell of sawdust and hot glue lingers in the air, mixing with the damp lime of the walls. The joiner packs his chisels, wrapping them in oiled cloth to prevent rust. He sweeps the wood shavings from the floor. The sun sets. The master of the house can now stand in the fosses, grasp the heavy bronze handle of the great door, and pull it shut. The world outside, the beggars, the carts, the politics, the noise, is shut away. Inside, there is only the quiet order of the Roman home. The structure is complete. The shell is secure. Now, we must bring in the elements that make life possible. We must bring in the water and the fire, the veins of lead. The house is secure, but it is dry. It is a skeleton of stone and wood, waiting for its blood. In the Roman world, civilization is defined by the mastery of water. To bring this life force from the distant mountains, through the great aqueducts, and into the private sanctity of the atrium, requires the skills of the plumbarius. He arrives with a heavy cart. His trade is one of weight and heat. He brings with him rolls of gray, dull metal. Lead. Plumbum. It is soft, easily marked by a fingernail. yet heavy enough to sink in water. It is the material of the pipes, the fistulae, that will run beneath the floors of the domus. Watch the manufacture of a Roman pipe. It is not extruded by a machine. It is crafted by hand. The plumbarius lays out a long, flat sheet of cast lead on a workbench. It is perhaps 10 feet long. He places a wooden dowel, a round rod, along the length of the sheet. Then, with leather-gloved hands and wooden mallets, he begins to roll the lead up and around the wood. Thump, roll, thump. The metal groans as it bends. He beats it until the two edges of the sheet meet at the top, forming a seam. It creates a pear-shaped cross-section, not a perfect circle. Now, the soldering. He heats a mixture of lead and tin. He pours the molten metal along the seam, fusing the edges together. The air fills with the acrid metallic tang of hot lead. It is a smell of industry, sharp and dangerous. He removes the wooden rod. He has a pipe. He stamps it. Clunk. The name of the owner, or perhaps the name of the plumber himself, is impressed into the soft metal, a guarantee of ownership and quality hidden beneath the ground. These gray veins are laid in the trenches prepared earlier, running from the street, under the threshold, and into the house. They are connected to the city's main supply, the local castellum aquae, a distribution tower likely standing at the nearest street corner. The connection is made with a bronze stopcock, a heavy valve that can turn the flow on or off. The pipes snake towards two locations, the kitchen and the garden, the peristyle. But the heart of the water system is in the atrium. Here, the plumbarius does not lay pipes, but prepares the catch basin, the impluvium. The masons have left a shallow, rectangular depression in the center of the floor, directly beneath the opening in the roof. This basin must hold water without leaking a single drop into the foundations. The plumbarius lines it with sheets of lead, or perhaps the masons return to apply a thick coat of opus signinum, that waterproof red cement made of crushed pottery. They polish it until it is watertight. At the center of the impluvium, a small bronze nozzle is installed, connected to the lead pipe running under the mosaic floor. This is the fountainhead. It might be simple, just a spout, or decorative, shaped like a dolphin or a pine cone. The work is done. The pipes are buried. The floor is patched over them. The system is invisible, hidden within the structure. It is time for the test. The plumbarius walks to the street. He uses a large iron key to turn the valve at the junction. Creak. Hiss. The pressure of the aqueduct, gravity-fed from the hills miles away, pushes the water into the lead veins of the house. Run back inside. Stand in the silent, echoing atrium. Listen. At first, there is a gurgle, the sound of air being pushed out of the pipes. Then, a sputter. And finally, the clear, bell-like sound of water. Splash, splash, splash. A thin, crystalline jet of water rises from the bronze nozzle in the center of the room. It catches the shaft of sunlight falling from the roof. It glitters. It falls back into the basin, creating concentric ripples that travel to the edge of the stone. The room immediately changes. The air grows cooler. The dry, dusty smell of construction is washed away, replaced by the scent of fresh, moving water. The sound is constant, a gentle white noise that masks the distant sounds of the city. The impluvium begins to fill. When it reaches a certain height, the overflow drains away into a cistern beneath the floor, a dark, cool reservoir that will store soft rainwater for cleaning and washing. The house now has a pulse, The water flows continuously, day and night. It is a luxury, a sign of civilization. The static stone has been brought to life by the motion of the water. In the peristyle, the walled garden at the back of the house, a similar miracle occurs. A second pipe feeds a fountain there, perhaps splashing into a marble bird bath. The water invites life. Soon, birds will come to drink. Moss will grow on the damp stones. The plumbarius gathers his offcuts of lead. He melts them down for the next job. He wipes his blackened hands. He leaves the house to the sound of its own fountain. The visual silence of the architecture is now accompanied by the auditory calm of falling water. The house is cool, clean, and flowing. But as the sun sets, the water turns black in the basin. The house is still dark. It needs the conqueror of night. It needs fire. The dance of olive oil. The water flows, a constant silver ribbon in the atrium. But the sun has abandoned the city. The sky above the compluvium turns from a brilliant blue to a bruised purple, and finally to a deep, velvety black. The house, deprived of its celestial partner, begins to disappear. The vibrant red frescoes turn gray. The mosaic floor is swallowed by the gloom. The stone walls, so solid in the day, seem to dissolve into the shadows. It is time to reclaim the room from the void. It is time for the lucernae. The Roman lamp is a humble object, yet it is the conqueror of darkness. It sits heavy in the hand, a small oval vessel of fired clay or perhaps bronze. Run your thumb over its surface. It is cool and slightly rough if made of terracotta, smelling faintly of the kiln. It fits the palm perfectly, a design refined over centuries of use. It has a central hole for filling and a nozzle, a spout from which the flame will spring. The preparation of the light is a daily ritual, as necessary as eating. A servant brings a jar of oil. This is not the fine, fragrant oil used for cooking or for anointing the body at the baths. This is lamp oil, thicker, perhaps a little cloudy, the second or third pressing of the olive. It smells raw, green, and earthy. Listen to the sound of the pouring. Glug, glug, glug. The golden green liquid fills the belly of the lamp. It is viscous, moving slowly. It must not overflow. It settles inside, a reservoir of potential energy waiting to be released. Next, the wick. A simple twist of linen or papyrus. It is threaded through the nozzle, absorbing the oil, pulling it up by capillary action until the tip is saturated. It waits, black and wet. The spark is struck, flint against steel, or perhaps a flame borrowed from the kitchen hearth. Fwhip. The wick catches. At first, the flame is small and blue, struggling against the cold air. Then, as the heat grows, it turns yellow, then orange. It steadies into a teardrop shape, dancing slightly on the draft. One lamp is not enough. A single flame pushes back the dark only a few inches. So, another is lit, and another, and another. The smell of burning olive oil begins to fill the room. It is a distinctive scent, warm, organic, slightly acrid, the smell of every Roman evening. These lamps are not placed on the floor. They are elevated. The candelabrum is brought in. It is a tall stand, cast in bronze. It has 3 feet shaped like the paws of a lion or the hooves of a deer. The shaft is fluted, slender, rising to a capital that supports a flat disc. On this disc, the lamps are arranged. When the candelabrum is placed in the corner of the triclinium, the dining room, the magic happens. The light does not flood the room like the sun. It pools. It creates islands of visibility in a sea of darkness. The light is warm, amber-colored, and alive. because the flame flickers, the light moves. Look at the walls now. The frescoes we painted days ago, the static columns and the frozen garlands, suddenly wake up. The flickering light makes the painted figures appear to move. A painted bird seems to flutter its wings. A painted mask seems to change its expression. The room breathes. The shadows in the corners expand and contract with every breath of the wind that disturbs the flame. But the light brings no heat to the large stone room. The night air in the domus can be chilling, penetrating the thick masonry walls. The hypocaust, the underfloor heating system, is reserved for the very wealthy or the bathhouses. Here, in this modest but respectable home, we rely on the foculus. The foculus is a portable brazier. It is a rectangular box made of bronze or iron, standing on short legs. It is filled with charcoal, wood that has already been burned once, purged of its volatile gases so that it burns clean and hot, with little smoke. The servant carries it in, holding the handles with thick cloths. The coals are glowing deep red, pulsating with heat. A faint gray ash coats them. He places the brazier near the couches. Feel the radiation. The heat travels through the air, hitting the skin with a dry, intense warmth. It is a localized heat. If you sit close, your face burns while your back remains cold. It encourages closeness. People gather around the foculus like moths. Occasionally, the servant tosses a handful of dried herbs onto the coals, rosemary or lavender. Hiss, pop. A wisp of fragrant smoke rises, masking the smell of the oil and the charcoal. The aroma of the countryside drifts through the stone room. The visual landscape of the house at night is high contrast. There is no ambient glow. There is only the bright orange of the flame and the deep black of the shadow. The ceiling is lost in the dark. The roof beams are invisible. The room feels smaller, more intimate. The walls seem to close in, wrapping the inhabitants in a warm, painted embrace. The silence is accented by the sounds of the fire, the soft sputter of the oil lamp as the wick burns down, the tink of the cooling charcoal in the brazier. The house is resting. The frantic energy of the construction, the noise of the hammers and the trowels, is a distant memory. Now, the house is ready to be lived in. It has shelter, it has water, it has light, and it has warmth, but it is still just a shell for the body. It needs the objects of comfort. It needs the furniture that will support the human form in repose. It needs the wood, the bronze, and the wool that make a house a home. The shadows dance on the floor, stretching long and thin from the legs of the candelabrum. The oil level in the lamps drops imperceptibly, measuring out the passing of the night. We watch the flame, mesmerized as the Romans did, finding comfort in the small, contained fire that keeps the vast darkness at bay. The wood, the bronze, and the wool. The house is built. It is painted, paved, and lit. Yet, if you were to walk through it now, your footsteps would still echo too loudly. It is a series of beautiful, hard surfaces. It is a stage without props. A Roman home is not cluttered. It is not filled with knickknacks or wall-to-wall cabinetry. It is a space of intentional emptiness, punctuated by specific, elegant objects. It is time to bring in the furniture. The most important object in the Roman world is not the chair, but the couch. The lectus. It is on the lectus that the Roman sleeps. It is on the lectus that he eats. And it is on the lectus that he receives guests. It is the throne of daily life. The joiner returns, or perhaps a specialist known as a Faber Lectarius. He brings with him pieces of maple, beech, or for the very wealthy, the prized citrus wood with its swirling tiger stripe grain. Watch the creation of the legs. They are not simple square posts. They are turned on a lathe. The wood is clamped between 2 points. A bowstring is wrapped around it. The apprentice moves the bow back and forth. Zip, zap, zip, zap, spinning the wood rapidly. The master presses a sharp chisel against the spinning timber. Wood shavings fly into the air like confetti. The square block is transformed into a cylinder, then into a complex shape of curves, discs, and bulbs. It is architectural. The leg of the couch mimics the column of a temple. These wooden frames are often veneered. Thin sheets of expensive tortoiseshell or ivory are glued onto the wood, polished until they gleam, or they are fitted with bronze. Bronze feet, shaped like the paws of a lion or the head of a griffin, are capped onto the wood. The metal is cool and smooth, offering a heavy, stable base that will not slide on the mosaic floor. But a wooden frame is hard. To make it a bed, suspension is needed. There are no metal springs here. Instead, the frame is drilled with holes along the inner edge. Through these holes, the craftsman threads long strips of leather or heavy hemp girths. He weaves them into a tight grid, a web. He pulls them taut. Creak, snap. He knots them securely. This webbing provides the bounce. It is firm, but yielding. Upon this web, the mattress is placed. It is a linen sack, stuffed tight. For the common man, it is stuffed with straw or dried reeds, which rustle when you move. For the master of this domus, it is stuffed with soft, washed wool from the sheep of Puglia, or perhaps delicate goose down. The mattress is tufted to keep the stuffing in place. It is covered with a throw, a stragulum. This is where color enters the room again. The wool is dyed in Tyrian purple, saffron yellow, or deep crimson embroidered with gold thread. It spills over the edge of the wooden frame, softening the hard lines. In the triclinium, the dining room, 3 of these large couches are arranged in a U shape. This is the tria. 3. Clinium. Couch. They are pushed together, forming a continuous surface for reclining. The center is left open for the slaves to serve food. Now, the tables. The mensa. A Roman table is not a heavy 4-legged beast that sits immobile in the center of the room. It is light, portable, and often has 3 legs. Why 3? Because a 3-legged table never wobbles, even on an uneven mosaic floor. It always finds its balance. Imagine a table of citrus wood. The top is a single massive slice of a burl, polished with beeswax until it glows like a gem. The smell of the wax is sweet and intoxicating. The legs are slender bronze rods, modeled to look like the legs of a gazelle, antelope. They are delicate, poised, as if ready to run. The servants carry these tables in. They place them gently near the couches. Click. The bronze feet touch the stone floor. They are low, designed to be reached from a reclining position. In the atrium, a different kind of furniture is placed. The arca, the strongbox. This is the safe of the household. It is a heavy chest, bound in iron straps. It sits conspicuously in the main hall, a signal of wealth and stability. It is bolted to the floor. The wood is dark, old oak. The lock is complex. Inside, the family stores their coins, their deeds, their most precious jewelry. It stands like a sentinel, a heavy, dark block against the white walls. There are chairs, too, though fewer. The sella, the simple stool without a back, used by those of lower status or by the master when he is working. And the cathedra, a chair with a curved back, used often by the women of the house. It is woven from willow, wickerwork. It is light, airy, and creaks softly when sat upon. The room is filling up, but it is not crowded. The space between the objects is as important as the objects themselves. The air can circulate. The light from the compluvium can travel across the room without hitting a wall of clutter. The final touch is the textiles. Heavy curtains, vela, are hung in the doorways between the atrium and the side rooms. There are no wooden doors here, just thick wool or linen drapes. They soften the acoustics. They muffle the voices. When a breeze blows through the house, the curtains sway gently, a heavy, silent dance of fabric. Rugs are scattered on the floor, not wall-to-wall carpets, but islands of wool to warm the feet in winter. They are patterned with geometric shapes, mirroring the mosaics beneath them. The house now smells of beeswax polish, tanned leather, aromatic cedar, and lavender-scented wool. It has texture. It has soft surfaces to absorb the sound. The echo has died down. The house feels wrapped. It feels ready to hold the human body. The furniture waits in the semi-darkness. The impression of a body is waiting to be made on the cushion. The table waits for the cup. The silence of the house is now an expectant silence. It is the pause before the arrival. The hearth and the clay. We leave the polished luxury of the triclinium with its citrus wood tables and purple wool and move deeper into the house. We follow a different scent now. It is not the sweet smell of beeswax or the floral note of lavender. It is a smoky, savory, earthy smell. We are entering the engine room of the Domus, the Collina, the kitchen. In a Roman house, the kitchen is not a showroom. It is a small, dark, utilitarian space, often tucked away near the latrine to share the plumbing. It is a room of fire and soot. The walls here are not painted with delicate frescoes of swans and temples. They are whitewashed, perhaps, but stained by years of wood smoke rising to the high, small window near the ceiling. The center of this world is the focus. The hearth. It is not an enclosed metal oven as we know it. It is a raised masonry platform, built waist-high against the wall. It is built of brick and covered in tiles, heat-resistant and sturdy. On top of this platform, the fires are laid. There are no gas burners. There are piles of charcoal. The charcoal is banked up against small tripods made of iron. These three-legged rings wait to hold the round-bottomed pots. Look at the cookware. It is a collection of shapes evolved over centuries for open-fire cooking. There is the olla. It is a jar made of coarse, gritty clay, unglazed, with a round belly and a wide mouth. It sits directly in the embers. The clay is porous. It absorbs the heat slowly and radiates it evenly. It is the vessel of the slow stew, the porridge, the lentils that bubble gently for hours. Next to it hangs the kakabus. This is a metal pot, bronze or iron, with a handle for hanging over a hotter flame. It is battered, blackened by soot on the outside, but scoured bright and clean on the inside. And on a wooden workbench sits the mortarium. This is the heavy tankard of the Roman kitchen. It is a wide, shallow bowl made of thick pottery. Embedded into the clay on the inside are hundreds of tiny, sharp pieces of grit and stone. It acts like a grater. The cook throws in garlic, coriander seeds, rue, and celery seed. He takes a heavy wooden pestle. Grind, scrape, grind. The sound is harsh and rhythmic. The grit in the bowl tears the herbs apart, releasing their oils. The kitchen air fills with the sharp, green, pungent aroma of the Roman diet. This is where the maridum, the garlic cheese spread, is born. The storage in the kitchen is not in cupboards, but in jars. The amphorae, they lean against the wall in a wooden rack, or their pointed bases are stuck into a bed of sand to keep them upright. Look at the amphora. It is the cardboard box of antiquity, but infinitely more beautiful. It is a tall, two-handled terracotta vessel. Its shape is sinuous, tapering to a spike at the bottom. The clay is pale yellow or salmon pink. Written on the neck of the jar in black ink in a cursive scrawl is the Titulus Pictus. The label. It tells us what is inside. Old wine from Falernum, fish sauce from Pompeii, olive oil from Baetica. Tap the side of the amphora with your knuckle. Thunk. A dull, heavy sound. It is full. Inside, the liquid is cool and dark, protected from the light and the heat by the thick ceramic walls. The stopper is a disc of cork, sealed tight with pozzolana, lime, or pitch. For bulkier items, there are the dolia. These are massive spherical jars, so large a man could curl up inside one. They are not movable. They are buried halfway into the dirt floor of the pantry. The earth keeps them cool. Lift the heavy wooden lid of a dolium. Inside you might find grain, wheat or barley, piled high, dry and golden. Or you might find lentils or salted pork. The smell is dry and dusty, the smell of harvest stored for winter. The kitchen is quiet now. The fire has burned down to a bed of glowing red embers, pulsing gently in the draft. A single clay lamp sits on a shelf, casting long, dancing shadows of the hanging ladles and meat hooks against the sooty wall. There's a sense of waiting here. The mortarium waits for the pestle. The olla waits for the water. The charcoal waits for the breath of the bellows to roar back into life. It is a humble room, stripped of the pretense of the atrium. It is a room of survival, of sustenance. The textures are rough, unglazed clay, rusted iron, charcoal dust, rough wood. It feels grounded. And just beyond the kitchen, through a narrow door, lies the source of the herbs that fill the mortarium. The air changes again. We leave the smoky heat of the kitchen and step out into the open air. But we are still inside the house. We are entering the lungs of the domus. The peristyle. The captive nature step out of the dark, smoky kitchen and into the light. Blink your eyes. The air changes instantly. It is no longer thick with the smell of cooking oil and charcoal. It is fresh, green, and alive. You are in the peristelium. This is the private heart of the Roman home, a secret garden hidden behind the high walls of the domus, invisible to the street, reserved for the eyes of the family. The architecture here changes. In the atrium, the focus was inward, towards the pool. Here the focus is outward, towards the sky and the earth. A colonnade, a row of elegant columns, runs around the perimeter of the rectangular courtyard. The floor of the walkway is paved with a simple, cool mosaic, or perhaps beaten earth. But in the center, the roof disappears. The sun floods down into a rectangular plot of cultivated earth. This is the viridarium, the pleasure garden. It is not a wild patch of forest. It is nature tamed, measured, and subjugated to the will of the architect. It is green geometry. The topiarius, the landscape gardener, has been here. He is an artist of the shears. He has planted boxwood, buxus, along the edges of the paths. It is a dense, small-leafed shrub. With his sharp iron shears, he clips it. Snip, snip, snip. He shapes the living bush into low walls, into balls, into cones. perhaps even into the shapes of animals or the letters of the owner's name. The smell of the cut boxwood is sharp and distinct, a green, resinous scent that hangs in the warm air. Walk along the gravel path. The gravel crunches softly underfoot. Crunch, crunch. On either side, the plants are arranged by height and color. There is the dark, glossy green of the acanthus, with its large architectural leaves that inspired the capitals of the Corinthian columns. There is the silvery gray of the rosemary, growing in tufts, releasing a burst of pine-scented fragrance when you brush against it. In the corners stand the sentinels, the cypress trees. They are tall, dark, and impossibly thin, pointing like dark fingers towards the bright blue square of the sky. They do not move in the wind. They are solid pillars of foliage. And there are fruit trees, carefully pruned to stay small. A pomegranate tree, with its leathery leaves and bursts of scarlet flowers. A lemon tree, its yellow fruit hanging like bright lanterns against the dark green canopy. The scent of citrus blossom is heavy and sweet, mixing with the earthy smell of the watered soil. The walls that enclose this garden are not left bare, to make the space feel larger, to create the illusion of an endless forest. The pictor has returned. He has painted the back walls with a trompe-l'oeil garden. He has painted a continuation of the real garden. He has painted fences, fountains, and birds that sit on painted branches. Stand in the center of the garden and look. It is hard to tell where the real plants end and the painted plants begin. The real green merges with the pigment green. The real shadow blends with the painted shadow. It is a dreamscape, a world where winter never comes to the painted leaves. Water is here too. A channel, a Euripus, runs down the center of the garden. It is lined with blue waterproof plaster. The water moves slowly, barely a trickle. It feeds a central fountain, perhaps a marble statue of a boy holding a goose, or a nymph pouring water from a jar. The sound is different here than in the atrium. In the open air, the sound of the water is softer, lost in the rustle of the leaves. But there is another sound. Look up. Hanging from the wooden beams of the colonnade are bronze wind chimes. The tintinnabulum. They are elaborate, often shaped like gladiators or phalluses, a symbol of good luck and protection. Suspended from them are small bronze bells. When the breeze slips over the roof and descends into the garden, it catches the chimes. Ting, ling, ting. A random, delicate music. It is a lonely, peaceful sound. It speaks of an empty afternoon, of a time for napping. Scattered through the greenery are the oscilla. These are marble discs or masks, hanging from the branches of the trees on chains. They rotate slowly in the wind. One side shows the face of a satyr, the other a tragic mask. They spin, flashing white in the sun, then disappearing into the shadow of the leaves. The garden is also a museum. Small marble statues are placed on pedestals among the ivy. A bust of a philosopher with a furrowed brow. A small statue of Diana the huntress. They are white and still, watching the slow growth of the plants. The marble is cold. The leaves are warm. It is a place of profound privacy. Here, the master of the house walks in the evening, his sandals scuffing the gravel. He looks at his roses. He smells his herbs. He listens to the bells. The city of Rome, with its million screaming inhabitants, feels 1,000 miles away. The walls block the noise. The sky is framed. The world is reduced to this square of green, this captive nature, growing silently within the stone embrace of the house. The sun begins to dip. The shadows of the columns stretch across the garden, striping the gravel path with bars of darkness. The birds stop singing. The crickets begin. Chirp, chirp. The garden prepares for the night, breathing out the oxygen it has created during the day, filling the house with cool, clean air. We have built the structure, decorated the surfaces, furnished the rooms, and planted the garden. The house is a functioning machine for living, but it is not yet protected. It needs spiritual insurance. It needs the gods. We must go back inside, to the atrium, to meet the invisible residents of the Domus. The invisible residents. The garden is dark now. The wind chimes are silent. We move back into the house, into the atrium. The oil lamps are flickering, casting long, jumping shadows. The house feels empty, but to a Roman, it is crowded. It is teeming with invisible watchers. We are not alone. Every Roman domus is a temple in miniature. Before the great marble temples of Jupiter or Mars on the Capitol, there is the humble shrine of the home, the lararium. Walk to the corner of the atrium, near the hearth. There, set into the wall, is a niche. It looks like a dollhouse temple. It has a pediment, 2 small painted columns, and a tiny altar. This is the spiritual center of the household. Look inside. There are small bronze statuettes, no taller than your hand. They are the Lars, the guardians. They are depicted as young men, dancing, holding drinking horns, rhytons, and plates, pateras, high in the air. Their tunics swirl around them. They are joyous, active spirits. They are the ghosts of the ancestors, or perhaps the spirits of the place itself. They watch over the family. They see everything. Next to them stands another figure, the penates. These are the gods of the pantry, the protectors of the food supply. They ensure the amphorae do not crack and the grain does not mold. They are the difference between starvation and survival. And often, there is a painted snake, a serpens. Do not be afraid. This is not a monster. It is a symbol of the genius of the master of the house, his generative power, his life force. The snake slithers along the painted base of the shrine, approaching a painted altar to eat an offering. The ritual is daily and mandatory. The paterfamilias, the father of the family, approaches the shrine. He does not need a priest. He is the priest of his own home. He wears a clean toga, pulling a fold of the cloth over his head to veil himself, to separate his eyes from the profane world. He lights a small fire on the miniature altar. He takes a pinch of incense, tus, from a small box. It is expensive, a resin from Arabia. He drops it onto the coals. Hiss. A plume of fragrant white smoke rises, curling around the bronze faces of the dancing lares. The smell is sweet and heavy, the smell of sanctity. He offers food, a piece of salted cake, the mola salsa, a few grapes, a libation of wine, poured carefully from a small bowl. The liquid stains the altar. Lares familiares. Protect this house. Keep sickness from our door. Let the walls stand strong. The silence in the atrium during this moment is profound. The slaves watch from the shadows. The children stand still. The house is acknowledging its masters, both human and divine. But there are other spirits too, darker ones. The lemures or larvae, the restless dead. The house must be protected from them. Look at the door again, the threshold. It is a magical barrier. To trip on the threshold is bad luck. To enter with the left foot is a bad omen. Pede dextro, right foot first. The slave at the door cries out to guests. And look at the floor. In the mosaic of the vestibule, there is often a warning. A black dog is depicted in stones, chained, with bared teeth. Beneath it, the words, Cave Canem, beware of the dog. Is it a warning about a real dog? Or is it a spiritual guardian, a beast to frighten away evil spirits who might try to slip in when the door is opened? In the bedroom, the cubiculum, the air is heavy with different magic. Above the bed, small amulets might hang. A piece of red coral to ward off the evil eye. A small bell. The Romans lived in a world where the air was thick with influence. The house was designed not just to keep out the rain, but to filter the spiritual atmosphere. The lararium glows in the lamplight. The smoke of the incense drifts up towards the compluvium, carrying the prayers into the night sky. The bronze layers dance their eternal dance, frozen in metal. They are the oldest residents here. They were here when the foundation was poured. They will be here when the roof eventually falls in centuries to come. The house is now spiritually fortified. It is a sanctified space. The family can sleep. The layers are watching. The penates are guarding the storeroom. The snake is fed. The balance between the human and the divine is maintained. The night deepens. The sounds of the city have almost vanished. Only the distant bark of a dog or the rattle of a night cart disturbs the silence. The house breathes. It is a living organism, a complex system of stone, water, fire, and spirit. We have built it. We have blessed it. Now, we must inhabit it. We must see how the body moves through these spaces we have created. We must witness the daily cycle of life within these walls. The theater of morning. The night passes. The oil in the lamps burns dry, and the flames flicker out one by one, returning the house to the gray dominion of the shadows. The lares stand watch in the dark. The water in the impluvium continues its endless, quiet splash. The house sleeps, but it is about to perform its primary social function. It is about to become a stage. Before the sun has fully risen, before the first golden rays hit the roof tiles, the silence is broken, not by a shout, but by the soft sound of bare feet on stone. The household slaves are awake. They move like ghosts through the corridors, emerging from the small, cramped rooms near the kitchen. They begin the ritual of opening. The heavy wooden bars are lifted from the internal shutters. Thud. The shutters are folded back. The gray morning light filters into the rooms, revealing the dust motes dancing in the cold air. The house is waking up. It smells of stale smoke from the night's lamps and the fresh, sharp scent of the morning dew. The main event begins at the front door. The ostiarius, the doorkeeper, approaches the massive oak valves we saw installed earlier. He slides the heavy iron bolt back. Clack, slide. The metal is cold. He pulls the doors open. The bronze pivots groan, a deep, resonant sound that signals the start of the Roman day. The street outside is already awake, and they are waiting. Clients. These are the clients, the dependents of the master. They are here for the salutatio, the morning greeting. They have gathered outside the door in the semi-darkness, wrapping their wool cloaks tight against the chill. They file in. The narrow fosses, the throat of the house, channels them into the atrium. Watch how the architecture controls them. They step from the dirty, chaotic street onto the pristine mosaic floor. They lower their voices. The vast height of the atrium ceiling, the echo of their footsteps, the staring eyes of the ancestor masks on the walls, it all serves to intimidate and impress. The atrium fills with a sea of togas. White wool, some bright and new, some yellowed and frayed. The sound is a low, continuous murmur. It is the sound of whispering, of shuffling sandals, of fabric rubbing against fabric. Rustle, shuffle, whisper. It sounds like dry leaves blowing across a stone courtyard. They do not go everywhere. They are contained. The house is designed like a funnel. They are allowed in the atrium, but no further. They wait. They look towards the tablinum. The tablinum is the master's study, situated directly opposite the front door, across the atrium. The curtains are pulled back, and there he sits, the pater familias. He is framed by the architecture. The view from the front door looks straight through the atrium, through the tablinum, and into the bright green garden behind him. He is silhouetted against the light of the peristyle. He looks like a statue, composed and powerful. This is why the house was built this way. The axis of vision is an axis of power. The walls, the columns, the floor patterns, they all lead the eye to him. One by one, the clients approach. They step forward onto the finer mosaic of the tablinum. They offer their greeting. Ave Dominus, Hail Master. They receive a small gift, a coin, or a basket of food, and then they are dismissed. The house absorbs this crowd. The plaster walls reflect the murmuring voices, amplifying them slightly, making the crowd seem larger, the master more important. The air gets warmer with the body heat of 50 men. The smell of the crowd, unwashed bodies, garlic breath, damp wool, mixes with the lavender scent of the house. And then, as quickly as it began, it is over. The last client leaves. The ostarius closes the heavy doors again, but perhaps leaves one slightly ajar to show the master is at home. The murmur fades. The tide of white wool recedes back into the city. The house exhales. The silence returns, but it is a different silence now. It is the silence of industry. The master remains in his study, reading scrolls of papyrus. The women of the house move to the back rooms, to the loom, to the garden. The sun climbs higher. The light in the atrium shifts. The square of sunlight on the floor moves inch by inch, a natural sundial counting the passing hours. The water in the fountain sparkles brighter. The house has done its job. It has impressed the neighbors. It has reinforced the social order. It has protected the family. It has stood firm against the chaos of the street. Now, the long, slow afternoon begins. The siesta. The shutters in the bedrooms are half closed to keep out the heat. The house turns inward. The noise of the city is a distant hum, blocked by the thick tufa walls. Walk through the empty atrium now. It is vast and cool. The ghosts of the morning crowd are gone. You can hear your own breathing. You can hear the settle of the timber beams in the roof as they warm up. Creak. The house is waiting for the final act of the day. It is waiting for the light to fail, for the work to end, and for the ultimate purpose of the home to be fulfilled. Rest. The return to the dark. The return to the earth. The eternal stone. The day has turned full circle. The sun, which rose to wake the masons, the carpenters, and the clients, has now dipped below the western hills of Rome. The light withdraws from the house like a tide going out. It leaves the garden first, abandoning the cypress trees to the dusk. Then it retreats from the triclinium, leaving the purple couches in shadow. Finally, the last square of light climbs up the wall of the atrium and vanishes through the compluvium into the sky. The house is reclaiming its silence. The noise of the morning salutatio, the clatter of the kitchen, the murmur of the afternoon rest. It has all been absorbed by the plaster and the stone. The domus is a vessel that has been filled and emptied. The evening meal, the cena, is finished. The oil lamps have burned low again, their flames sputtering in the pools of warm oil. One by one, they are extinguished. The smell of the smoke hangs briefly in the air, a ghost of the light, before dissipating into the rafters. The family retires. They move to the cubicula, those small, white, windowless rooms. They close the heavy wooden doors. The latches click softly. They lie down on the wool mattresses, supported by the ropes we saw the joiner tighten. They pull the dyed blankets up to their chins. They close their eyes. The breathing of the house slows down to the rhythm of sleep. Now the house is truly alone. It is no longer a backdrop for human drama. It is a structure standing against the night. Walk through the empty halls in the dark. Your feet make no sound on the smooth mosaic. The patterns of the floor, the black dogs, the geometric mazes, the twisting vines are invisible, but they are there, waiting for the dawn to reveal them again. They are patient. Stone does not get bored. Listen, the fountain in the atrium is still falling. Splash, splash, splash. It does not care that no one is watching. It follows the laws of gravity and hydraulics, indifferent to the hour. The water is the heartbeat of the house, a constant liquid pulse in the center of the solid rock. Touch the wall. It is still warm. It has stored the heat of the day, the energy of the sun captured by the thermal mass of the volcanic tufa and the brick. Now, as the air cools, the wall releases that heat back into the room. The house is keeping its occupants warm, radiating the memory of the sun into the dark. It is a protective mother, holding the cold at bay. Above, the roof timbers creak. The great oak beams, hewn from the forests of the Apennines, adjust to the temperature. They hold the weight of thousands of terracotta tiles. They shelter the space from the dew and the wind. They are the shoulders of the house, uncomplaining and strong. Deep below, the foundations sit in the earth. The opus cementitium, that mixture of lime and volcanic sand we poured in the very first days, has become hard as rock. It grips the earth. It anchors the house to the history of the city. Roots of trees may try to push against it. Tremors may shake the ground. But the foundation holds. It is the invisible strength, the silent promise of permanence. Think of the time that will pass. The people sleeping in the rooms will grow old. They will leave. New generations will come. They will paint over the frescoes with new colors. They will lay new mosaics. They will change the furniture. But the house, the domus, will remain. The walls we built will stand for centuries. Even when the roof eventually fails, even when the rain finally enters the rooms and washes away the plaster, the bones of the house will endure. The brick courses will remain. The stone thresholds, worn down by millions of footsteps, will remain. But tonight, the house is new. It is perfect. It is a sanctuary of order in a chaotic world. It is a triumph of geometry over nature. It is a machine for quiet living. The wind from the garden blows gently through the corridor, carrying the scent of the sleeping rosemary and the damp earth. It circles the atrium once, stirring the air, and then settles. Everything is still. The lairs, in their shrine, watch with bronze eyes. The dog on the threshold sleeps in stone. The water falls. The walls radiate warmth. We have built a home. We have created a space of safety and peace. And now the work is done. The tools are packed away. The dust has settled. There is nothing left to do but to let the house stand and to let the night take over. Sleep well within these walls. The stone will hold you. The roof will cover you. The water will sing to you. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Good night. If this journey through the duller side of history helped you unwind and maybe even drift off, please let me know. First, hit that like button if you enjoyed this historical lullaby. Second, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future installments of history too boring to keep you awake. Finally, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below about which historical topic you find so mundane. It deserves to be our next sleepy video. Your suggestions will shape our journey into the world's most delightfully dull past.